we're going to show you how to lift and relay a patio on a budget. This particular patio had loose slabs all over it, which was making it dangerous. All the joints were full of weeds and it just didn't look good.
It was very soft.
We're going to show you how to put new hardcore down, how to lay the slabs on a full mortar base that will stand the test of time. We'll show you how to mix up the sand and cement pointing, and then how to put the point in between the joints so you can have a lovely patio that will be laid and pointed properly.
Lift all the slabs. We're going to reuse them as well, and we'll see what's underneath. Whether we need to put stone down, or if we're okay just to go back on top of sand and cement. So we'll have a look. As you can see, these just come up clean, nothing stuck to the back, which is good. They haven't been laid great. Really, sand and cement should be stuck to the back. Just show you now how not to lay them. So as you can see on here, we've taken a path up, and that is how not to lay them, with 5 spots.
If you do take your slabs up and there's mortar stuck to the back, and there's another process of chipping the mortar off slowly so as not to damage the slab. As you can see, I'm stacking the slabs in a sort of diamond pattern. This means you're not trapping your fingers when you're putting them down, and then when you are lifting them back out of the stack, they're nice and easy to pick up as there's always a corner available.
Right, now we've got all the slabs up, we can now take up the old bedding layer, because this isn't good enough to lay new slabs on top of, because it's very soft. So we'll take this up and we're going to get some hardcore in.
Once all the slabs have been lifted, it's a case of getting the old bedding layer up. I was lucky on this one as the bedding layer was so soft and easy to get up. It's just a case of getting it all up now, loading the barrows and getting it into a skip. You want to get back down to the original hardcore if you can. Once you do get all your bedding layer up, it might be an idea to just dig a couple of trial holes to see how deep you've got your original hardcore. If it's a really poor patio, there might be literally nothing under it. You want a minimum of 100mm of hardcore. In some cases it might be more. Remember, your fall should be set from your dig. So basically you don't want your fall set with your hardcore and you end up with, say, 50mm one end and 150mm the other end. You want an even depth of hardcore right throughout. So if that means doing a bit more digging to get that, then you've got to do it to have a patio that's going to last.
Right, we've got the old bedding layer up, which was very soft, we just couldn't have laid over that. As you can see, when we took it up before, how crumbly it was. That's just not good. There's no way you want to lay slabs again on top of that. So we're going to get some hardcore down in here. We've already got a bit of hardcore underneath this, but we're going to top it up a bit. You're looking for somewhere, well, if it's a new patio, you want about 4 inches of hardcore, 100mm minimum. But this one we're going to get away with just topping it up, you know, sort of 50mm in places, because we've already got a good depth of hardcore here. So we'll put it on a time lapse as putting this down. This will be sub base we're putting down as well, so we just show the barrow here. So this here is sub base or MOT type 1. You can use 20mm to dust. Right, another thing to add here is falls. We're looking for 1 in 60 fall. So we're going to set that. I'll put some information on the screen about how to set falls out and how far you should fall over certain distances.
Now you want to get the sub base spread out nice and evenly. If you're putting a big thickness down, you want to do it in layers so you can get some even compaction. I like to use a straight edge to try and keep it nice and level. Another good idea is to use a laser level if you can. And when you're going for your final height of your stone, make sure you're allowing for compaction, so you want to be a bit higher because it's all going to compact down lower.
So to get all your stone level where you want to be, you can use a long straight edge such as this. And you can use this then to screed the stone, like so. Another way of doing it is to have pegs and string, and you can measure down from the string. But the easiest way of doing it is to have a laser level. This here isn't big enough to warrant me using my laser level because I know where my levels are, but that is the easiest way. So you can just use the level then, and just make sure you know where your level should be, and use it to get the stone where you want it to be, ready for the whacker plate. So we'll just fine tune all this and then we'll give it a good whack. So another thing worth noting is you only want a fall in one direction. You want to ideally be level one way and the fall the other way. If you look at the level here, you've got it level this way and our fall then is coming down that way. So have a think where you want your water to end up. Obviously if you're just replacing a patio like this video is saying, your fall should be pretty much decided for you, but don't try and fall it 2 ways because it will cause problems because you can't bend the slab basically. Right, so next stage we've got our stone down, so we're going to give it a good whack with this whacker plate hire these from most tool hire places. I just want a few passes on it and try and go one way back and forth and then another way back and forth, get a bit of cross compaction going on. It just needs good compaction, so you don't want any settlement after you've laid the slabs.
You want to have a big enough whacker plate to make sure that stone's really getting whacked down. Some of the whackers you can get are just a bit small for the job, and just make sure you do plenty of passes and in different directions also.
So we're giving it a good whack with the whacker plate. If there's any big hollows or anything you need to fill in, they need to be filled in and whacked again. We're pretty good here, and the next stage will be laying the slabs. Okay, now we're on to the next stage of laying our patio slabs. So it's the fun part, the actual laying. So we've got a mix here which is 5 to 1, so that's 5 sand, 1 cement, with a bit of plasticizer. Nice and workable, no water sitting on top of it. So this is key to laying the slabs easily, is making a nice mix. It's going to make your job harder if you haven't got a good mix. So what we're going to do, we're going to start laying these slabs now. We're going to set a slab up first, make sure all the lines are good and the fall's good on it. Then once we've got that one in on the first row, then it's pretty easy after that, but the first row is really key. And the first slab is key, getting that one right. If you don't get that one right, you'll be chasing your tail afterwards. What we're going to do first is put our bed down. Our beds, you want to be no less than 30 mil, and you don't want to be, you can do up to 50 mil, but I think that's a bit much sometimes, so 30 to 40 really. And it's got to be solid beds, no spot bedding, because you see that is not a good way to do things. That's the problem we had on the old patio. You spot bed, all the bugs and stuff get under it, and ants and all that, and dig and the water gets in there. So we want a solid bed. So just put enough out with a shovel. Put it out with the shovel rather than the trowel. You can use the trowel then to even it out. Just want to touch more than that because I can just see. So you want to get your bed somewhat where you want to be. You want to give it a bit of room to tap down. Obviously we don't quite know our fall yet. We know how much we're going to fall, but we don't quite know our fall. And remember, we're reusing the slabs here, so you can wash them off before if you want. We're going to wash them off after. So put this down. Another thing to note here is, a few of you watching thinking, why am I not using primer? Well, on these type of slabs, porous ones, I don't use primer. I've never had a problem with a good mix them sticking. But if you've got, say, a porcelain, which is non-porous, or sandstone, or slate or something like that, you need a primer on the back of them. But these type of slabs never have a problem. It won't hurt to put primer on, but we don't put primer on these ones. Putting our first one down. I know what measurement we need off the house for the path, which is 940, so we'll just get that right first. But again, we can just sort of tweak that after. So we know the patio is running level that way, so we want our fall to be this way, because you can't fall in two ways. So we've got a slight fall there now. We'll set our line up in a minute to make sure the fall of that slab is running even with the stone we've put down. We're just going to give this a little tap down now, make sure it's level on top. So just come have a look at that bit. So it's nice and level on top there, and we got a bit of fall running that way. So now what we want to do, we want to just parallel this up again properly off the house. 940, 940, that's good. So what we can do now, we can set a string line up off this down to the bottom there, and that will show us if we're running the right sort of fall. This slab. If you're putting any pins in the ground, make sure there's nothing you're going to go through, like electrical, water or anything. Or even a phone line, sometimes they're not far on the ground.
Set string lines up wherever you can. This will help you out massively. Set the string line to the fall you've got for the fall direction, and then you can just put the level on the slab to make sure it's level in the other direction then. For gaps between the slabs, I go for about 12mm on these type of slabs. I don't use spacers, as I've been doing it long enough to have the gap even every time, but if you're not comfortable, use some spacers. 12mm ply is great for it, just cut it into strips. Another thing with the 12mm joint is I find that makes it nice and easy when you're pointing, because 10mm just a bit too slim.
What we'll do now is we'll just run them level each time across there. So all we've got to do to run them level is use the level there, and then that'll just run them level each time and keep with the fall as well. And we can use lines to check everything. So we'll go on with the next row then.
Once you've got that first row in, you can just keep adding to the rows then. Notice how I use my level horizontally, just to carry the level across off each row of slabs, as I know my fall is set then. This method works great for slabs that are flat on top, but if you've got riven slabs where the level's not quite touching the same in different parts, you may need to use the string line horizontally. So you'd have a string line coming towards the camera from the pin I'd put in originally. And you can do all this on your own, but if you're laying quite a few, then it helps to have someone on the mixer mixing for you, as you do go through this stuff quite quickly.
So we've done a few rows here now. Just demonstrate now to make sure all these edges are piled up like that. There's no voids or anything like that. We'll show now. We're going to lay another slab here and just continue this level over. Sometimes you have to change the way you're laying them, because you don't want to, if you're in a corner of a building, you can't whip yourself into a corner, so you do have to change the way you do it. But here, you can access it from any side. Not too bad. There. If you can see there, bring the camera down here, you can just see we're sort of 5-10mm higher than that slab, which gives us enough room to tap down. So there we are, we're continuing that level across. We're level there. That means if we're level there and level there, then the plane coming down there, the fall, is working the same. So just make sure these edges are good. And then we'll keep coming down. Again, another way of doing it, you can lay a slab here and you can have a string line set up on the edge then and lay to the string line. So if you're not as confident using the level like that, you can do that using a string line. String lines will never lie, so it's a good way of doing it, but with these basic square slabs, we're happy. And we've just got to check as well our parallel off the building to make sure we're all running right. So 940, so we're good. So we'll just carry on doing what we're doing and keep working our way across.
You just keep repeating the process over and over. Check everything as much as you can. Check your parallels, check your square. You can't go far wrong. You can do as much or as little as you want at a time, and all your slabs will be laid in no time.
We're going to have a look here how to do the sand and cement mix for the pointing of the patio. So we've got our basic ingredients. The most important one is plasticizer. This binds the mix together. You won't be able to use it without plasticizer. It adds air into the mix basically. You don't want to use too much or too little, it's just getting the right amount in. This is concentrated plasticizer, so you've got to make sure that you read the back of the bottle and see how much to put in. So for a mixer full of one of these Bell mixers, we'll literally be putting, I'll show you how much now, 5 millilitres in there. So put that in the mixer. Straight into the mixer I put it. Don't add it to your gauge and water, because if your sand's wet, you might not put much water in, so then you haven't got much fed going in. So straight into the mixer. So the next thing you add then is your water. My sand is, I'd say, slightly damp, so I'm just putting a bit of water in. It's about half a bucket I put in there. But how much water you put in will depend on the dryness or wetness of the sand, so just be careful with that, because the mix will wet itself up on its own to a certain extent. So you don't want to put too much water in, because you will mess the mix up. So the amount of material I'm going to put in this mixer is probably, usually aim for around 16 shovelfuls of sand, small shovelfuls, and there'll be 4 cement with that then, so 4 to 1. But I'll put in 8 sand, 2 cement, see how we're doing if we need water, and then I'll put another 8 sand, 2 cement in. Don't chuck it all in at once. So we'll turn it on now. Another thing to add on this, the key thing with this is time. It needs a certain amount of time to mix, probably up to 10 minutes. You don't want to over mix it, but if it's under mixed, it just will not be usable. Make sure your shovelfuls are even like this. Don't heap them too much, because your cement's got to be matched to the size of the shovelful. I'll try and keep it facing the camera now so you can sort of see what it's like. So that's about what you want your cement shovelfuls like, it's matched to the sand. So in there now we've got 8 sand and 2 cement. So I know with how wet this is, we don't need to put any more water in there. Another 8 sand and 2 cement on top of there now, and it should be to what we want it. So I'm going to have the cement on top of that now, and we can leave it mix, and you can just see it wet up. I won't pause the camera, so you can see how long it takes to mix, and watch it transform in the mixer there. So that's probably a touch dry there. We can put a tiny bit of water with that, but that will wet up a bit. So don't be tempted to put too much water in. Sometimes with these Bell mixers you've got to hold them up on the back, because they do tilt back a bit, especially this one, because it's quite old and worn, so it's tilting back a bit more than it should. So you see that there now. I wouldn't add any water to that for now, just leave that mix. So I'll leave that run. I'll probably speed this up a bit now, but I won't pause the camera so we can see exactly how long it takes to get a mix that's good enough to use.
You've really just got to give it plenty of patience, just knowing when to add that water. You can't make it too dry because it won't wet itself up, but it just needs to be on the cusp of having enough moisture in it, and then it'll do its own work wetting itself up.
As you can see, that's starting to come together now. We'll just leave that carry on mix a minute. So we're just going to put a dash of water with that now. Just watch it doesn't splash you.
notice this mix is really starting to bind together now, which will make it a nice creamy mix and perfectly usable for a pointing gun. And it'll get to a point where all you've got to do is add the water to get it to the desired consistency.
So now I'm just going to add the water to what I want. Just do a little splash of water in there. Don't add too much at once and just splash back in your face. Just watch out if you're mixing this up in the range of any cars or anything, because it will splash them, so either mix somewhere else and move the cars out of the way. Lovely and smooth, and that'll easily work with a pointing gun or grout bag, or even if you're just putting it in with a trowel and a tuck pointer. But it's just about having the time and patience for it to get wet on its own. Because if you try and rush a mix and you have it out and you see a load of water rising to the surface on top of the mix, that is not a good mix. It needs to be binding together, and the only way of getting it to bind together is just time. And equally, you can't over-mix it because you'll add too much into the mix and it'll be a weak mix then. So it's just having that balance, a bit more water in that. But this here will be perfect for what I want now. So that's as much mixing as it needs. I can have that out of the barrel and crack on with the pointing. Show you here how to point the patio that we've laid. We're going to be using sand and cement, which is the cheapest option basically for a DIYer. It means you don't want to buy any resin or anything like that. Resin is a good option, but sand and cement is cheap for materials, and if you've got the time to do it, then it's worth doing. And if done right, it'll last as good as any resin. So there's very little tools you need. One thing you need is a pointing bar, which is shaped like this. And this is simply run through the joints afterwards, and it'll give it a nice marbled compressed finish. You can do it flush, but it is a bit trickier to do, so I do like the pointing bar because it does iron it off nicely. Then you need yourself a trowel, then you need the pointing gun. These are very simple, just simply load the mix into it and push it out. And if it's a good mix, they work well. It has to be a decent mix. If it doesn't work, that means your mix isn't good enough. So we'll just show now how to fill one of these. So we're looking to fill it up about 3/4 full. Don't overfill it, because it'll just make a mess. Grab a bit on the edge of the trowel and slide it in. Try not to get it all over the edge of the point master, because it just makes a mess in the end, like I did there. So it's a bit more than 3/4 full there, but just don't fill it too much. So basically, put the end of the point master in, and you just want to follow the joints along. So we'll do this one here. We've done a couple already. So it does push out very easily. What you want to remember is you want to be slightly proud because you want something to work with. You don't want to be topping the joints up afterwards, because that just makes for a slower job. So it's just literally pushing it into the joint. And the good thing with a point master is it's pushing it right into any of those voids, if you do have any on the edges of the slabs. Like so. And just keep repeating that process.
How quick or slow this goes off once it's in the joints will depend on all the weather conditions. It can vary massively. You can put this in the winter and it's going to hang around all day and not go off enough for you to be able to point it. In the summer, you could literally put it down and half an hour later it's gone off. It really does depend on the weather. So if you're new to it, just don't put too much down in one go. Give it a little taster. The wind affects it massively as well. If you've got a strong wind, that's going to send it off. But the key is just don't try and finish it up while it's still too wet, because it'll just make a mess and it'll smudge all the slabs. If you point it when it's dry enough, everything that comes off after you point it will not stain the slabs.
So the first parts of this have been in for around an hour now. So I just want to show you what it looks like. Not much you can see on camera, but that's still too wet. You can see it's leaving little streaks in it. And what will happen there is it's too fluid in the joint still. And what you'll find is any overspin will stay in the slabs because it's how wet it is. So that needs to be left a bit longer, but it's not far away, probably another half an hour-ish. So you can't leave it for too long. You've got to keep going back and forth to check it because you don't want it to go too much. If it goes too much, you're just going to be chasing yourself and it's not good, it's not good dusty. So we'll just keep an eye on that. So this is a bit longer to go off now. So we'll continue striking it off. That's just about right now. It's still a bit damp in places. Just got to get away with that. You can just see it's not leaving too many marks in it now. Might be wet spots here. There's a bit of moisture in the joint where it's white. Might need to come back to that one. But as you can see, the bits that are coming off here aren't sticking to the slab, so that's a good thing. It's gotten dry enough. So we'll just keep pointing this now.
I had to cut the audio on this clip as the wind got too strong. I just couldn't hear myself talking when I played it back. Once you've pointed it all up, you can then go over it with a very soft brush. So that's either a very soft sweeping brush or a soft hand brush like I've got here, which is a horsehair, which is very soft and won't mark the joints when you brush it. You can leave it a bit longer before you brush it. There's less chance of any marks on the pointing then. As you can see, I've got a blower in the background. That is a really good tool again for getting all the little snobs off. I'm just sorry I didn't film the process of brushing it off. It was just going off too fast with this wind. And remember, if it's your first time, just do a small mix and try a little section and see how it goes. But there's so many factors that can affect how long or short it takes to go off. Another one I forgot to mention is joint depth. If it's a deeper joint, it'll take a bit longer to go off if you've got more mortar in there. And if it's a shallower joint, it'll go off much quicker as there's less mortar to go off. I hope this tutorial could help a few people out on relaying their patios. And as you can see, I've shared how much this patio costs to relay. These figures might vary depending on where you are in the country, but it'll be a good guide so you know how much it may cost. There is also some in-depth videos on how to point on my channel, also how to mix. They might be worth checking out.